Stop fighting yourself. I think nowadays more than ever, we're actually fighting ourselves more than we're fighting anything else. I wanted to talk about this kind of idea, and I want to talk about a few things today. Why we're maybe our own worst enemy in theory, but also each day, it's really more of a battle of yourself and your mindset that keeps you from reaching where you're trying to go. First thing I want to talk about is this kind of new age social media influencer that's always talking about productivity, being a better version of yourself, but really kind of showing you a version of themselves that they think everybody should be. Like, for example, you got the 4 a.m. waking up, doing ice baths, working out, doing like literally everything that would involve an entire day before like 7 a.m. And what I want to say to that ultimately is you don't have to be that guy. In fact, if you are not a morning person, don't wake up at 4 a.m. Don't try and do everything before you go to work or before 7 a.m. Either way, there's 24 hours in the day. No matter when you start, those 24 hours will eventually end. And while that, social media influencer that starts his day, or at least he pretends he starts his day at 4 a.m., when he's in bed by like 8 p.m., you can still be grinding. You can still be doing whatever you want to do. And you can be productive when, in theory, that person's asleep. So you don't have to be this 4 a.m. waking up, ice bath robot that social media portrays. But one thing that's helped me in my life, and I want to talk about it, it's called, it's a Japanese principle called Ikigai. And it's this cornerstone. I'll put a picture up on the screen just to give you guys a visual. It's this cornerstone of what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. And that is considered your Ikigai. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that is what the Japanese kind of find as this middle ground of what will create the most purpose or maybe the most happiness in your life when it comes to what you do. So for example, like, what do you love? What do you love to do? What does the world need? What are some things you can be paid for, and what are you good at? If you take those 4 categories and you can even write this down, like you can like make this an exercise. Write those circles or draw those circles, write, those 4 categories in those circles, and try to kind of figure out what would be that middle circle or that middle ground of your Ikigai. And right there is what you can start today and have that be your purpose, at least as a beginning point. It may not be your purpose long term, but that is a fantastic point. And why I say this, and I want to go back to the title of the video, Stop Fighting Yourself, is that so much in culture today is pushing you towards something that you maybe don't want to do. The times are kind of shifting, but for the longest time, people pushed you into, or at least pushed me specifically, my generation and the generation before me, into going to college. Going to college is a great thing. I'm never going to say it's not going to be a great thing. However, not everybody's destined to go to college. Just because you don't go to college doesn't mean you won't succeed in life. And just because you don't go to college doesn't mean you're going to have a bad job or be a failure. In fact, not going to college could be the best decision you ever made. That's just one example, ultimately, of if you think that you are being pushed so heavily to go to college, but you know deep down that you don't want to, that is a great example of don't fight yourself. Like, don't go to college, right? I know it's easier said than done. You have maybe a lot of societal and family pressures to do so, but with so many different decisions in your life, I feel like many times, and especially in my life, I was fighting myself on, I would say to myself, the world wants me to do this, or society wants me to do this, or my parents want me to do this, but I don't want to do that. And deep down, you know what those things are. And so when I say don't fight yourself, is really just understanding who you are as an individual and who you are as a person and the things that make you who you are. To go back to that influencer waking up at 4 a.m. For example, I'm a night owl. I made a video on this a while back. I could easily stay up till 4 a.m. if I needed to, right? I used to get my sleep schedule so screwed up that it would become full circle. Like it would be a 24-hour revolving door of when I would go to bed and when I would wake up. All that to say is I'm not a morning person. I could never make this 4 a.m. lifestyle work. But here's where I'm a little bit different is I can stay up late when everybody else is asleep. That is when I can be productive, right? And nobody talks about that. All these people who talk to you about productivity and talk to you about creativity and all these really successful people, they don't talk about necessarily, when they say late nights, they mean like, well, 8 or 9 p.m. Like, well, what about 2 in the morning? Right? Maybe that's your best time to work. If that's your best time to work, then work at 2 in the morning. Now, if you've got a 9 to 5, that doesn't really work out too well. But if you want to build something and you want to start something, why not do it at 2 a.m.? You could do it at 6 a.m. You could do it in the middle of the day. Who cares? Where I'm going with all this is when you're looking for your purpose and your passions, number one thing is I would recommend doing this Ikigai. If you've never heard of it, do this exercise. You can Google it, you can type it in, you can literally write on a piece of paper. You can draw those circles, put in the 4 categories, and see what in your life you could put in the middle of those 4 categories, because that is your Ikigai. Number 2 is start thinking about the things that either society or your family is pushing you to be. And whether or not you think those things are maybe good or maybe helpful in your life, why don't you take a step back and think, well, is this really what I want to do? Now think also a little bit deeper and think, well, is this something I would want to do when I'm older? Because right now you might be young and you might say, I don't want to go to college. Some people may regret that going, maybe when they're 30 or 40, they may regret never going to college. But in reality, it's a lot easier to go back to college nowadays. I mean, you could, go somewhere online. There's a lot of online universities nowadays, a lot of online classes. It's not that you have to spend 4 years inside of a university. That's a little besides the point. But ultimately, where I'm trying to get at today is don't fight yourself. You don't have to be exactly what your parents want you to be. You don't have to be exactly what society wants you to be. Find your purpose, finds what gets you up in the morning, and that is what you are meant to do. Talk to you guys later. Peace.